Welcome back to another episode of Coffee, Contracts, and Reality.
On today's episode, we're going to talk about what makes a smooth transaction. With me as being an agent, I always set the proper expectations. I meet with my clients, I talk about the process, like what that looks like when we're looking at homes, when we're going to list a home, when we're showing homes, when we're going to write an offer. If a buyer sends me a listing that they want to go see, I review that listing and look for any red flags. I make sure that one, it checks all their boxes. So if they send me a home that has no garage and I know the garage was a need, I will let them know, hey, this one doesn't have a garage. Did you still want to look at it? When we go to write an offer, I'll call the listing agent and ask the listing agent, is there anything specific that that seller is looking for in an offer? And at that point, I usually give them a rundown about my buyers, letting them know that they're solid, they're pre-approved, they've already went through underwriting.
Yeah, I really think that the cleanest closings are the ones that, where things don't feel rushed. From the lender side of things, when it comes to the pre-approval, just having everything completed up front. So employment's been verified, assets have been verified. We already have all of the bank statements. If there's any underwriting issues, we want to know up front and we want to have those addressed immediately. I don't want to wait until last minute where everybody's in panic mode because I don't like to have little fire drills that come up. Having a lender that is available is pretty important. There are situations where people aren't buying a home Monday through Friday from 9 to 5. If you're going to write an offer and it's 6 o'clock at night and you can't get a hold of your lender, you have a problem. It's really important to know and understand up front what your closing costs are going to be, how much you're going to need at the closing table, what you can expect your monthly payment to be. All of these things matter. Likewise, from the seller side of things, which we don't really deal with that a whole lot, but if my buyer is submitting an offer, I like to take it upon myself to call the listing agent to back up our offer and let them know, like, hey, this is really strong. We've already got everything done. The only thing that we're waiting on at this point is going to be title work and the appraisal. Typically, that's it. We might need, an updated bank statement or pay stub at that point, but everything else has already been done and completed. That way, the buyer and the seller aren't hit with surprises down the road.
Yep. Some things that buyers should look for in their agent, things I typically do, again, is setting the proper expectations, walking you through the process on what that looks like. So if you were to write an offer, like what are the next steps? Earnest money, inspections, appraisal, title. Open communication is key. I talk about worst case scenarios. What could happen, it may not happen, but I just want to set the proper expectations. Things that a seller should look for when interviewing an agent for listing their home is talking about strategy. You want to have a plan in place on how you're going to execute to get the seller the most bang for their buck. You want to also have comps to show, hey, XYZ sold for this. This isn't comparable to your home due to the square footage, the price range, the updates. So you definitely want to make sure they're prepared and they show you data as well as have a plan in place.
I think that's huge. I know that I have experienced personally where someone wants to list their home at a price because they saw the home down the street sell for that price, but the homes are very different.
Mm-hmm.
So can you talk a little bit about that when you're looking at comps? Comps just means comparables.
Yep.
But what are things that are comparable versus things that aren't comparable?
One of the biggest is square footage. You have to look at the square footage. If you have a 4,000 square foot home and this home is 2,400 square foot and this one sold for 400 and something, most likely theirs isn't going to sell for 400 and something because that's almost 2,000 more square foot.
Right. It's like a whole nother house.
Yes. And so you got to take that in consideration. Bedrooms and bathrooms, finished basement or not, garage, is it a 1 car, 2 car, 3 car? That makes a huge difference. Then you look at the updates. Is this one move-in ready turnkey, or does this one need some updates, but it's totally livable, but just dated? Or does this need a complete rehab? So that all goes into it.
So whenever you receive an offer, what is an indication to you that this agent knows what they're doing?
They'll call me and say, give me the rundown of the buyers, their background, if they're pre-approved, if they're solid. and showing interest that they want to get their offer accepted.
Is there anything that buyers push for that you know could potentially complicate the transaction?
Writing an offer under asking price and asking for seller to pay all of closing cost. I always have to explain that to my buyer. If you're going in under and then you're asking for closing cost, that's taken away from the seller's proceeds. So if the home's listed at $200,000 and you want $6,000 in closing costs to be paid by seller and you're going in at $190,000, that's already taken away $16,000 from what the asking price is. I always tell them, like, you have to go in with your highest and best and what you're comfortable with. We can write it for that, but I'm just setting the proper expectations that most likely the seller will probably counter or reject it, especially if it hasn't been on the market that long.
Have you ever known early on that a deal is probably going to fall apart?
Deals can always fall apart. Anything can happen.
Sure.
It's not closed until it's funded. So there's always that possibility, but certain loan types may not qualify for a certain house, or if an appraisal comes back and needs predications, paling or chip paint, that's a huge one. Those are easy issues to fix, but that could delay closing. Is there anything that realtors do that makes your job harder?
Unfortunately, and I know that there's going to be some lenders that will back me up on this, but it's cumbersome when realtors start quoting interest rates. We have a lot of people that come in, they do the minimum down payment, or if they're doing down payment assistance, those rates are already set. We have nothing to do with that. And the other thing would probably be lack of communication. I know, like, we have a good dynamic. I know what's going on when we have transactions moving along. I know when offers are submitted. I know when offers are accepted. I know when earnest money has been sent in. I know when inspections are. I know when the inspections have been completed. You communicate very clearly when closing is, what time closing is, where closing is. And so those are really the biggest things I think that help keep things, going very smoothly.
Mm-hmm. I know this happens a lot, but when a buyer is shopping lenders, do you get nervous at all, or what goes through your mind?
Do I get nervous? No, I'm more concerned with what information they've been given. Not all lenders are the same. When somebody calls me and they say, "Hey, I'm shopping rates, what is your rate?" That's already an indication to me that they have something in hand. 9 out of 10 times, it's probably lower than market value, meaning that what the lender has given them aren't real numbers. I'll ask them to get a loan estimate and we can go through it together. Things that are really important that sometimes are not disclosed. Just because somebody gives you the lowest rate doesn't mean that you're coming out of pocket with the lowest amount of money. Typically, the lower the rate, the more money that you're going to be bringing to closing. I've seen where lenders will underestimate insurance and things like that on purpose because they want the payment to look lower. And so a buyer who doesn't know any better is like, "Oh, this looks really good. This is a really low payment." Well, if you're estimating insurance to be $50 a month, that's not realistic.
Yep.
And especially in today's world where insurance has continued to climb. So I asked them to get a loan estimate, and I will have a loan estimate, and then we can compare apples to apples. And I will take the time to explain to them, "Hey, I know this rate says 5%. But if you look here where it says points, they're also charging you $12,000 to get this 5% interest rate, where my interest rate might be 5.5%, and I'm not charging any points. So you don't have to come out of pocket an extra,
blah, blah."
It makes a lot of sense to sit down and talk with people and educate them through the whole process.
What are some red flags that buyers do that don't even realize they're red flags?
Moving cash and moving money around. So when we ask for bank statements, things that, like, I don't care how many times you go out to eat. I don't care that you go to the casino. None of that matters to me. The things that we're going to be looking for are overdrafts and deposits, and specifically cash. I have had situations where people have $5,000 sitting at home in their safe, and they decide that right before their transaction is over that they're going to go ahead and deposit said $5,000 into their account. The problem with that is because our industry is so heavily regulated, we have to be able to document penny for penny. 9 out of 10 times, people don't have receipts for all of the cash that they keep in their safe. If we can't document it, we can't use it for the transaction.
What's one behavior from buyers that instantly make you nervous?
When buyers go silent or MIA before closing. So, for example, we may need an updated bank statement or pay stub before closing. We have to document everything. And so I'll ask for that. Sometimes it's the most simple things, and we won't hear from them and they disappear. I've called, I've emailed, I've texted, and now I'm getting nervous because, we have deadlines that we have to meet too. We have to send out loan estimates X amount of days before we can close. If we don't meet that, we can't close on time, and then closing gets pushed out. I get very nervous when they go MIA on me. So it's really important to just keep an open line of communication with your lender and your real estate agent and the title company. We're all trying to work together to get you in your home and get everything closed for you. Do you think a smooth transaction is more about the client or the people who are guiding it?
I'm going to say both, because it all comes down to communication. All parties have to communicate. Even the other sides, the other agent and the other client on the other side of the deal. We have one goal, and it's to get this transaction closed. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Coffee, Contracts, and Reality,
where we've got you from contract to closing.